Welcome back, you guys. This is your host, Andrea, with From Mrs. to Ms. I'm being joined by someone very special today. She is all the way in the UK, and she's joining us at the late hours of the night there so that we can make this happen for you guys. Annalie, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank you for also accommodating me today.
Absolutely. It's such a joy to have you. So, just want to let you guys know a little bit about Annalie. Annalie Howling is a highly accomplished performance coach with over 20 years of experience working with business leaders, elite athletes, and members of the armed forces, including ex-UK Special Forces. She specializes in transitional support, helping individuals break through self-imposed limitations to achieve their goals with confidence. With a unique coaching approach, Annalie empowers her clients to step into their full potential, leading more fulfilling personal and professional lives. I love that. So beyond her private coaching practice, Annalie partners with FTSE companies, top organizations, and high-performing individuals, serving as a fierce accountability partner. She is the only EMDR-certified global practitioner with a corporate background, offering executives a fresh performance-driven approach to mental resilience and leadership. She is a sought-after speaker, author, and facilitator. Annalie shares her expertise on global stages, webinars, and podcasts. And as an ambassador for Hire a Hero UK, she's also dedicated to mentoring veterans as they transition to civilian life. Oh my goodness. So
What an
good.
intro. What an intro. Thank you so much.
Well, it's your life, girl. So good and so proud
I
of
was feeling a
you.
bit tired. I'm like, I mean, it is 8 p.m. here on a Sunday, and I'm like, wow.
Is it still going? Well, when you're good, you're good. So this is amazing, the stuff that you've done. I cannot wait to dive into all of this with you. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So how did your journey lead you to specialize in transforming trauma and achieving confidence? How did it all
So
start?
honestly, there's kind of two big points in my life. We'll go to the latter one and come back because it makes more
Mm-hmm.
sense that way. But I had a big burnout when I was 29. So I had a big corporate job myself. I was doing all the stuff, right? And I had
Right.
all the things. I had the Range Rover on the drive with the right postcode in the good part of London. I had
Yes.
like a very handsome fiance at the time that later became my husband. He had a good job. It's all that kind of time of life when, I'd got my master's degree, I'm doing all these things, I've got all this stuff. And I was so unhappy and I was just
Ah,
constantly unwell and I didn't know why. And I
yeah.
talk about this quite a lot, but I was like, underneath, I knew what it was, but I didn't want to face it. Like the elephant in the room was my job. I was in a role that was in complete disalignment with my soul, but I didn't
Mm.
want that to be the answer. So instead, I wanted like a gluten intolerance to be the answer, or, like just something like that. Like, oh, just cut out this food group and you can just
You'll be
keep
good.
going. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Great. I'll just keep sprinting this marathon. Like, I'll just stop eating crackers, whatever. Like, I didn't want the answer to be what I knew it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you've ever had a burnout, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners will,
Mm-hmm.
my ass got served back to me. Like, your body will just stop in a way that you
Yeah.
can't ignore it or band-aid it or, yet another coffee or something won't get you through. It gets
Mm-hmm.
to the point where you simply can't. So that happened to me at 29. I'm nearly 44 now. And at the
Mm-hmm.
time in the UK, coaching was like not a thing. It was all a bit weird and woo.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Wendy Rhodes had done her sexy things in billions at that point. It was all a bit odd. But a friend of mine had been to San Francisco and she's incredible and a really good friend. She's like, let me just do a session with you. Let me just do a
Yeah.
session, see what you think. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, open to anything. And I remember she did this guided visualization with me, and it was so impactful. And I think I had honestly just fought, like as I was fighting my subconscious, I was fighting what I knew to be true. My body is trying to give me all these signals and my system, and I'm just like, no, no,
Nope.
no, must carry on. Must in Britain, we've got this saying, like, I think it's from the war times, like, keep calm and carry on. Like, good, carry
Yes.
on, carry on. So I was doing all of that really, really well. Anyway, but I had such a profound experience in this guided visualization. Basically, I cut my own crap, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
got straight into the deep subconscious and I saw these things and it was just so resonant with me and it just connected to a part of myself I hadn't before. And I was like, right, that's it. I
That's
want
it.
to follow this coaching path and follow this coaching dream. So I did. So I moved to San Francisco for a period of time. I'm type A, so I'm like, I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna do every course, I'm gonna do all the certificates because I like a certificate, did all of that. And then through the process of that, as anyone that's ever done coaching, been to coaching school, you think, oh, cool, I'll go and get a certification. And actually, you do that, but you really do, for me in particular, you become vulnerable. Like, you have to
Mm.
show up. You can't just go there and study. That's
Yeah.
part of it. But you have to go there and be, and you can't fight it or fake it. And
Mm.
I honestly thought, I was like, oh, cool, yeah, I'll go there and I'll study this thing and I'll pass an exam and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, the thing I wasn't prepared for was taking off the armor that I've been
Hmm.
layering on myself for years to get through this, like, kind of to cope with what I've been coping with. And then the trauma piece came later. So I was doing the coaching, and coaching is amazing. And I
Hmm.
highly recommend it for anybody that has a goal. So, like, I want to change my job. I want a new relationship. I want to leave a relationship. I want to change something about my fitness or whatever, right? If you've got a goal, coaching is amazing.
Hmm.
But I felt for me, there was something missing. And this is kind of coinciding with coming towards the end of my relationship, my marriage. And I'd had my daughter, and some things were just sort of, really coming up that weren't going away:
Hmm.
behaviors, patterns, thoughts, limiting beliefs. And then the universe genuinely just kept pushing me towards this thing called EMDR, which is
Yeah.
eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is a technique used for PTSD and CPTSD. And
Okay.
when I say it was, I mean, it was everywhere. Like, I could not ignore it. Every conversation, sat next to a stranger on a plane. What do you do? I'm an EMDR therapist. Like, pick up a magazine. It was like,
What?
it was insane. I was like, and I'm quite like, okay, I get it. You
I
want me
hear
to
you,
do this? Cool.
universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I found the training course, got onto it, and did it. And it was the final piece, the puzzle, for myself and also for any of my clients. It's the most important piece of work that I've
Mm.
done. And it helped me to realize that part of my burnout, yes, was I was in a role that was not aligned with my soul.
Hmm.
But the reason I was there in the first place was I was trying to outrun childhood trauma. I had a very
Mm.
violent childhood. My dad was very violent. My mum
Oh.
colluded with him. So I didn't have a safe place or a safe person. I was unsafe in my own household.
Hmm.
And so for me, going home was never an option. I had to try and make myself financially secure. That was me desperately. I wasn't just like racing up the corporate ladder for sort of accolade's sake. I was
Yeah.
doing it to try and create financial security and safety, which I now have a huge empathy for that version of myself that
Yeah.
literally worked herself into the ground to try and do that. And I did that. But that was also, like I said, the final piece of that puzzle for me. And it
Hmm.
was also a real start of opening up something else. And that's now why I'm so kind of insistent on blending these techniques for my clients, because like I say, coaching is fantastic, but I feel like we really have to get under the bonnet as to why we may sabotage ourselves. Why are
Hmm.
we accepting scraps? Why are we having these cycles of limiting beliefs or thoughts that are making us unwell? Why are
Yeah.
we full of shame? All of these things. So that's really kind of a bit of a potted history. And then the book
Yeah.
is out in May, which is very exciting, which is kind of me trying again to, I appreciate that you have to have an element of privilege to work with me. You either,
Yeah.
have a company and a job that can pay or whatever. I never charge veterans of the armed forces, by the way. That's my
Mm.
give back, is I
Wow.
always,
Oh,
always pro
amazing.
bono the armed forces.
Hmm.
Um, but I wanted to create a place where people could pick up this book wherever they're going in their life. And I sense we're going to go to some of the most difficult places.
Yeah.
And the most difficult place for me was coming up to knowing that I needed to leave my marriage, that it wasn't
Yeah.
working. And I felt so ashamed. And there were various things going on with me in my life. I was self-harming, which is highly shameful as a
Mm.
therapist. I mean, next level shameful.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, this book is the thing that I wish I'd had at that
Yeah.
moment of like deep pain, high anxiety, shame with its like horrible clammy fingers all over me, just
Hmm.
trying to pull me back and stop me from taking that step out and spreading my wings. So that's why I've created
Yeah.
what I have.
Wow. What a journey. That's an amazing journey. And I want to touch base on a few things that you said in there. Because you talked a little bit about you went and started doing the coaches and the certificates and all of that stuff, but it still wasn't quite enough because it was very
Mm.
surface level, right? We can get our certifications and be like, I know what I'm talking about. But if we're not dealing with it inner self, then it doesn't really matter. We can't really walk. We can't talk if we're not going to walk, right?
Mhm.
So I love that you really recognized that and went deeper on that. And I do want to talk about your book. We'll get to that in a little bit as well. But wow, what an incredible What an incredible journey that is. And also, I want to mention how you talked about the EMDR with the universe talking to you. And I have to bet that resonates with so many people and me as well. I just feel like that is such a big thing right now, and really listening to what the universe is telling us and taking those leaps of faith and just going for it. It is scary, right?
Mm.
I can't imagine at 29 going from a corporate job, like you said, having all of these crazy things, your car, these amazing, your car, where you're living, your boyfriend, everything, and just letting it go because it
Yeah,
didn't feel right. And so many
yeah.
people don't do that. We just sit and stay in a mundane job or wherever we feel comfortable and afraid to take that leap of faith. So I'm so excited to find out more about all of this. Just really wonderful. So you've worked with elite athletes, and then you've also worked with corporate leaders, and then you also talked about the ex-UK Special Forces. So I was just curious as to what common mindset challenges do you kind of see across those high-performing individuals, and how do you help each of them to break through? If you can touch base on that a little bit.
Of course. So imposter syndrome. Imposter
Mm,
syndrome is the thing that unites absolutely everybody that I work with. And
yep.
again, a bit like me outrunning my trauma to get to a I genuinely think we have kind of almost two places in our life where when we're younger, we're like hunting, we're chasing, right? We're
Yes.
like, oh, I
Yes.
want that person's job. I'm a graduate, I'm an intern,
Yep.
on this lowly pay, we're in a house share. We're
Yeah.
all, who drank my milk? We're all kind of chipping into things. We're in that, it's like a really fun time, but it's different. We haven't got a lot of
Yeah.
money. But you're chasing, you're chasing, you're chasing. And then
Mm-hmm.
you start getting some things. And I don't necessarily mean material, but what I mean is responsibilities. Like you
Mm-hmm.
start getting the mortgage that you have to keep the payments up.
Yep.
Things start being on you. Maybe you have children. Like I'm a single mother. My daughter's
Mm-hmm.
upstairs right now. I said to you off air, like doing bedtime
Yeah.
after this. Like I've got bills to pay. Like, there's
Yeah.
things that have to happen. And
Yeah.
then particularly with elite sports people, this is very, very hard for them because I don't know about in the States, but in the UK, their pay is public. So you know
Mm.
what their contract is.
Yep.
You maybe don't know exactly what their sponsorship deals are, but generally speaking, that's kind of public knowledge. Now, everyone therefore assumes that these people are earning what it says they are, but they're
Yes.
not. The
Not.
agent gets paid. The agent takes a fee. Quite often, if
Mm-hmm.
the agent was involved when they were young, because most of these people have done this since they were 4 or 5 years old to become a
Yeah.
professional athlete, right?
Yeah.
So more often than not, the parents and family members are also involved, are being paid. Quite
Mm-hmm.
often people wish to support their family. So there's like more, literally other people's mortgages rely on you as well.
Yeah.
And then this can start creating this real imbalance of you're no longer playing the sport, shall we say. There's no longer the joy in it. There's now this huge pressure of
Burden.
what if I can't keep this going? And when
Mm.
we were hunting before and taking risks and like
Mm.
didn't matter in the same way, we're just going to go for it, we're going to take risks. I really believe that success sometimes can make us more conservative because in
Mm-hmm.
the back of our mind, we've got this kind of ticking narrative of like, oh, but you've got that thing of this is happening or what if or
Yeah.
whereas before when we're more untethered but we're hungrier and maybe a little bit less educated in some regards to these responsibilities, we're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to take risks. And then also what can
Mm.
happen is we can get to a certain point. This certainly happened to me in my career, where you're there and you've got this stuff and you look around and you feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
You feel like you don't deserve it. And it's because we never stop and celebrate like the small milestones and successes. You reading out all of those accolades about me, I could feel like that's someone else you're talking about. But I did all that. And
You did.
I've just written a book as well, and like
Yeah.
it's taking me quite a while for like
To
honestly,
grasp it.
I haven't quite worked out that I'm an author yet, if that makes sense. It hasn't
Yes.
quite clicked into place that I've written a book and it's
Yeah.
going to be in stores and like I'm going to be on Barnes and Noble on Fifth signing it the day it comes
Wow.
out. Like that is
Such an
nowhere.
accomplishment.
So it's almost like my imposter syndrome, my inner critic
Mm-hmm.
is kind of keeping that at arm's length right now because like the little me is almost too afraid of what that means.
Oh,
So there's a
yeah.
little bit of it's going to take me a little while to integrate that, but
Mm-hmm.
that is what I see is you almost a lot of us get to a place and we look around and we feel like we haven't earned it or we feel like a fraud or it could be
Mm-hmm.
snatched away from us at any moment. So
Mm-hmm.
it's safer to keep things and people at a distance because
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't bear the heartache if it got pulled away from me.
Mm-hmm. That is exactly what happens. And I think everybody really struggles with that fear all the time of like not being enough, right?
Yeah.
Not being, yeah, like, oh, what if they really see who I am and that I don't really know what I'm talking about? Or, I'm on here doing these things. It's so hard. And the pressure of social media on top of that, you've always got to keep that up and that facade. And most of it is a facade out there, right? Most people aren't
Completely.
even who they say they are. So you've also been very open about your journey as a divorced single mom who once felt held back by shame and the unresolved trauma and the self-imposed limitations. So you said that your turning point was when you were 29 and you needed to just give up that career and start over. Would you suggest that to the listeners or people that are struggling in the same way to do that in the same way you did? Or would you kind of be like, oh, maybe I did it a little too early or I didn't do it the right way? Would you offer the same advice to them?
I think, I mean, if you've had any kind of abuse in your childhood, I would urge people to probably have some conversations before I did. I would say we
Mm-hmm.
talked about social media just a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
I would say where social media was helpful for me, I'm 44 in a couple of months, like
Mm-hmm.
when there wasn't the social media that we have now. So what's good about it is there are quite niche groups right now. So right
Yes.
now it's okay to be no contact with family members that hurt you. When
Mm.
I was kind of growing up, and even in my early 20s, that was not the
That's
case.
not
The only thing that
okay.
people said to me was, blood is thicker than water. You only
Mm-hmm.
get one set of parents, and so
Mm-hmm.
I felt even more shame. I felt even
Wow.
more like it was me. When my father was so violent and my mother's colluding and they're both basically saying it was me that made them do it,
Mm-hmm.
I internalized that message because they're telling me I am bad and I've made them do this to them. And then
Mm.
society kind of compounded that in that it must be me, or I have to try and make this relationship work, even though it feels so horrible and cruel. And, people then don't say things. And so that, I think in social media has been very helpful, actually, that I know there are a number of
Yeah.
groups and pages, and I hope pages like yours and mine and
Mm-hmm.
podcasts where, if you're feeling feelings that maybe aren't the same as people around you right now, like other people are. So when I was looking to leave my marriage, I
Mm-hmm.
was looking for anything that would tell me I was going to be okay. So I would like scour internet forums, like chat rooms, looking for someone that was the same age as me, that their daughter was the same age as mine, to say, hey, it worked out and I met the love of my life and I'm absolutely fine and no one was emotionally or mentally damaged. And don't worry
Yeah.
if you don't have your parents around to help you. And, I was looking, but that was my anxiety, was trying
Mm-hmm.
to like search to almost like perpetuate this horrible cycle that I was in. Like I talk
Yes.
about it quite openly. I talk about it in the book, and I have never been more anxious in my life than the months leading up to me saying that I wanted to leave my marriage, because anxiety will have that, and society sometimes kind of, some people as well in the groups you may be socializing with, almost support the, oh well, I had two people say to me, do you not think you should wait and find someone else first? That was what that Yes, that was their advice.
Wow.
And I was like, it's a better idea for me to find some other person and then move me and my daughter in with them. And
Yes.
like,
Like it's
what?
not okay for you to be alone and self-sufficient. Like
Literally,
you literally need a man at all times to overlap.
literally. Yeah. So
Wow.
if that was my underlying limiting belief, let's say that was my belief that like
Yeah.
I couldn't look after myself financially or my daughter, that would
Mm-hmm.
have really spun me out even more. I mean, on
Yeah.
reflection, it says everything about them and nothing about me. And I just want your
Absolutely.
listeners to know that people
Yes.
giving you this advice. There was a Rumi, I think it's Rumi or Buddha, who said, never take advice from somebody who hasn't left home. Never take
Mm.
directions from someone that hasn't left home. Sorry, I
Mm-hmm.
apologize.
That's right.
And that was something that really served me, in that you can ask for advice from a lot of people, and or they offer it. Sometimes you're
Yes.
not asking for advice. And
Unsolicited
just
always.
remember, yeah, and just remember they're giving you the thing that they need to hear a lot of the
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
I just want to offer that as well. But for me, yeah, it was such a like the working out of my shame has really given me, I see my life in two parts. One was shameful, and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the burnout, and then the subsequent sort of like, it was still in there coming towards the end of my marriage, but the beginning of the coaching journey, the working coaching, the aligning my soul with an industry and work and people that were right for me, the
Mhm.
discovery of the trauma work, the untethering, like the pulling the roots of shame. Shame takes roots,
Yeah.
like getting hold of those roots like a weed and getting them out of my system.
Mhm.
Like that was the biggest piece of work that I did for myself. So if this is resonating, I would urge someone to just start looking into it, just maybe
Yeah.
start having a conversation. In the book, there are a lot of survivor stories, like my client stories. I really want to not debunk shame. Shame really can't thrive if we're all in unison, kind of telling our stories in the light. And I've got, I just want to trigger warning this right now, but I've got victims of sexual assault that have openly told their story in that book because they
Wow.
never want someone else
So
to feel
true.
ashamed. You know,
Yeah.
people that have suffered disordered eating patterns, infertility,
Mm.
sex, pleasure, dating, frenemy breakups, betrayals. I've got everything in this book. And one of the other things I've got in there around the divorce is I've got my own divorce lawyer in my book,
Mm.
which I
Really?
believe is a world first.
Yes. Yes.
Because we
Yeah.
talked about the role of shame in
Yeah.
divorce, but also relationships, not necessarily people that are married. And he says that because it's shame is weaponized in the
Mhm.
separation and divorce process, which it is. You know, you're
Mhm.
so intimate with someone, you tell them your weaknesses, where you're insecure,
Yep.
you share all manner of
Yep.
intimacy with an individual, and then the process of divorce, it's changing a little bit now, but generally speaking, it is designed to, you know, this person that promised to love, honor, and obey you is now in a
Mhm.
position to deeply betray you.
Mhm.
And that, he says, he believes people remain in relationships. And he's had clients that appoint him and then go back and stay in the relationship because
Fear.
the ex-partner was threatening to send intimate photographs to
Mhm.
family members, and culturally that would have meant, you know, disowning them and things like that. So shame is weaponized in these processes as
Mhm.
well.
Wow. Yeah, it is. It's a terrible thing. The one place that you felt the most safe and could share your most inner stories with then becomes what gets thrown back at you at the
Hmm.
end. It is so difficult. Um, so I'm going to get a little bit personal here, but with your divorce, so how old were you when you got divorced?
When it finally came through, it came through because it was like to do with lockdown. The court, oh, sorry, love, we lost it. It took ages. So I got divorced in this. Honestly, they were like, oh, yeah, sorry, we lost a bit of paper. I actually got divorced in December 2022,
Uh-huh.
but the process started in 2019.
Oh, so this was way more recent because you said you were 29 when you did the whole
That
thing.
was the burnout. Yeah.
Yes. And so then you still went through that period of time. Now, you mentioned that your father was very abusive and that your mother always had gone along with it. Do you still have a relationship with them?
No.
No, no. How can you, right? There was
Well,
no trust.
as a mother to my daughter,
Yeah.
I believe it's my job to keep her safe, and
Hmm.
I sort of forgive them. I don't hold any anger or resentment towards them, but equally, I cannot forget what happened. And as her
Yeah.
parent, that's just not a place that I think is mentally or emotionally safe for her. So,
Yeah.
and I found the whole process of trying to maintain a kind of relationship very fake and very
Hmm.
difficult. And it made me so anxious that it wasn't healthy for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Did your
that's
mom
not something.
ever come around? Did she ever come around on your side at all or see any
No,
other side of it? No.
no.
So still, and are they together?
Yeah.
So, wow. Wow. And so your ex-husband, and maybe I missed this in your first blurb, but what kind of led to that? Like what made you realize at that point you didn't want to be in that relationship anymore? And how long had you been with him?
So we were together for nearly 10 years all in,
Uh-huh.
and it was a case of, you know, there was no massive thing. There was no like someone had an affair with a neighbor or someone had a
The neighbor.
addiction, thankfully. Or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you hear I hear lots of things in the therapist chair and I get lots of DMs. So, you know, it was nothing like that. It was just
Mhm.
we had my daughter who's incredible, and
Mhm.
there just felt like a disconnection that kept growing, shall we say, in the
Mhm.
relationship. And it
Yeah.
felt like we just sort of were seemingly on quite different paths. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm also now at this point really embracing a life in kind of, I'm out of corporate, right? I'm doing coaching
Yeah.
work and trauma work, and I'm really, really fulfilled. And he'd
Yeah.
had some sort of, I don't want to speak too much about him, but like had
Sure.
some difficulties, and was sort of not feeling super great himself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just on different paths at this point.
Yeah.
And it was like, having done the work and working with clients myself, I remember saying, look, if we don't do this now, we are going to hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared for that. I don't want that to happen. If we carry on, we're going to really
Mm-hmm.
dislike one another. So it's really important to kind of almost hold this where it is. But to it wasn't just like, oh, la, lovely. Doesn't that sound nice? Have a cup of tea. On
Yeah.
the run up to that, and again, this is all in the book. So on the
Yes.
run up to that, I did everything to try and save my marriage. And I
Wow.
mean everything. I went on every course, I listened to every podcast, I went to different therapists, I did everything that I felt I could or that was available, genuinely wishing to find the magic elixir, answer,
Mm.
tool, sentence, anything that would
Yeah.
save it. Because honestly, that felt much easier than the terrifying precipice of the change of what it meant to undo all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to find something that made it work. Now, what I found during all of this work, and I did like female sexual empowerment courses. I mean, we went out there,
Done it
like
all.
I did it all, and it's all in this book.
Ah.
But I really wanted, like I say, to find something. Now, what I found was myself. And when I say I found myself, I found the old me,
Uh-huh.
and I found the me that I honestly had probably put in a box and thought she'd never get to come out and see the daylight again.
Mm.
And then when I found that version of me, in a sense, it was gave me permission.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, I knew I could never be in that relationship again. It
Mm-hmm.
just wouldn't work. But to a degree, that was kind of a relief, because it was nobody's fault. Like,
Mm.
I just could not be in the container of that relationship. That's nobody's
Yeah.
fault. That just
Yeah.
it just would not work. I'd learned so much about myself that it helped to inform the fact that this relationship was not one that I could be in. And that was the right answer for all of us.
Yeah. And what a beautiful self-discovery. And I hope that the listeners hear that, because it is always that fear of, oh, but what if? Just like you said, they go back to it because it's easier to go back than to keep moving forward. So I love stories that show there is light at the end of the tunnel. That's amazing. And so as a busy single mom and a coach, how do you prioritize your self-care and make time for joy in your own life? You're so busy with all this stuff. When's time for Annalie?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question right now, because at the moment I'm a little bit strung out. So I'll be honest.
Here we are at late at night doing a
Well,
podcast on a Sunday.
I love doing this. This is a joyful part of my
Yes.
job, and I'm honored that you asked me on. I've
Oh,
wanted to do
thank
this one
you.
for ages. I've really wanted to do this because I feel like this is a community that's underserved,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't think people are honest, and I don't want, so how do I find my own joy? I wanted to say one thing to your listeners.
Yes.
I was so anxious before I said the words out loud. Like I say, I was looking for everything for it not to be true. I want, like my burnout, and I could stay in that job. That wasn't true. I had to face it. I had to do something about it and find a different job. And that would be fine if someone handed you a golden envelope and went, here's the answer, do this, and you'll be happy and successful forever. It doesn't work like that. It's one step in front of the other, and you've got to find a bucket full of faith. Same with leaving a long-term relationship or marriage. I knew I wasn't happy, but it wasn't like I looked left and there was like my happy ever after. That wasn't the case, and so you have to take a leap off, not knowing where you're going to land, or if you're going to land at all. And it's really scary. But I just want to say, I've never been more anxious in my life than before I said those words out loud and made the decision. When I did it, when we said, I said, I want us to separate and have divorce, and we went through that process. There were challenges. They weren't always obviously very nice. Sometimes they were very difficult, went through lockdowns and all sorts of things, and businesses tanking, and there were difficult times. Lawyers are designed to make things a bit spicy. So things were not always perfect, but I have never felt that anxiety again. The moment those words left my lips, I've never felt that anxiety again.
It's a sense
Challenges,
of peace.
yes. Difficulties, yes. Never that anxiety. So how do I do self-care? At the moment, we're speaking on the 2nd of March, and my book comes out on the 13th of May. So at the moment, I have got a marathon that I'm sprinting, and that's my finish line, is after the book comes out. So this is a case of So what I did was, knowing this, and I've got
Mhm.
better at knowing this, Amber, my daughter, and I did a nice holiday just before
Oh,
Christmas.
perfect.
I blocked, like, I didn't work for a month. I kind of like, I was like, I'm absolutely not speaking to anybody. I'm going to give her my present. Today we went to this beautiful like sculpture garden. And again, there's no, obviously we're doing this now, but there's
Yeah,
no phone, no email, no one's getting hold of me.
I
I know
love
that I
it.
can't do both well. So I'm either with her fully, or
Yes.
I'm kind of doing work stuff. And bless her, it's not for her to understand. And I do obviously feel guilty, different to shame, but I do feel guilty
Yeah.
sometimes about the balance. But this is for me and her. Like, me doing
Yes.
this book, me doing everything that I've done, the evenings, the tours, the jet lag, the countries, the all the stuff I'm trying to do is for me and her. I want
Yes.
to be able to, do more work around the writing and helping people. And I hope that also allows me to have more time for her.
Perfect. How old is she?
She's 8.5.
Oh, perfect. Fun age. Fun age. She is going to love this when she gets older and knows what you did. So I'm going to go back. I love to go through your Instagram. Beautiful, beautiful posts on there. It's very fun to watch. So you use the powerful metaphor of a snake suffocating if it doesn't shed its
Mm.
skin. And so I was going to ask, how does this idea apply to people who feel stuck in their lives? And what advice do you have for those struggling to just let go in that same sort of sense?
Oh, I love that you asked me that. Thank you. It's one of my favorite
You're
things. So I was
welcome.
always really drawn during the divorce to like the snake emblem. And I knew it was like
Yes.
Shakti energy. I knew the coiled snake at the bottom of the spine was said to be the Shakti, the feminine energy, and it needs to flow. I knew that from yoga, but I didn't
Okay.
really know anything else about it. But I felt very called to it. Then when I
Mhm.
was writing the book, I was researching the snake a lot more. And I had a couple of like big dreams with snakes coming to me as well in
Hmm.
different ways. And they carry a lot of meanings. If anyone's dreaming about snakes, like, look it up. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
what you think. And anyways, I was researching the snake, and I did not know that if a snake doesn't shed its skin, it will die. I
I
didn't know
didn't know
that.
that either.
It's amazing. So so when snakes go through the metamorphosis themselves, their
Hmm.
capillaries between their scales start to expand. And so they're literally growing, they're outgrowing their
Their
skin. And so
skin.
if you've ever seen a snake skin, more often than not, it's inside out because they've
Yeah.
slithered out of it. But if they were to not leave it, if they were to stay in the place that they had physically outgrown, they
Hmm.
would suffocate and they would die and they'd be in deep pain. And that just really spoke to me about this idea
Hmm.
of like suffering and constricting ourselves and trying to force ourselves into a place that we've outgrown. And
Hmm.
part of me was dying.
Hmm.
Part of me was dying in a place that, I would have had to put parts of me in a box and just never seen them again and gone, oh well, just
Yeah.
like that. And I
So
was, that
sad.
parts of me were dying and they were turning off. And as much as it was more painful in the end. I talked about this, I was talking to someone earlier about, we almost have to get to a place where the fear of change is so great, and I don't want to minimize that.
Hmm.
I had a huge fear of change. I didn't have family support. I loved my old in-laws. They are
Hmm.
amazing people. And I knew I'd be leaving that part of my
Yeah.
family as well. I was kind of really going out alone with a young daughter who was 3 at the time. It's
Yeah.
terrifying. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna, minimize that in a time that was difficult. But it wasn't right for any of us. It wasn't authentic, and also it was too painful for me to stay somewhere that I wasn't able to be myself and I
Mm.
was suffocating. So I just want to offer that metaphor for anybody, whether it's work, a friendship. That's a big one with women, and going through divorces
Yes.
and changes where you look around and you assume the friends that were there when you were maybe really down, and you look around and when you're starting to feel a bit better and you think, oh, they'll be really happy, I've got this nice piece of news, they'll be really happy,
Yeah.
I'm changing, I've shed my old skin, I'm feeling a bit more like me. And then you realize they're not happy for you at all. It's
Mm-mm.
really hard. And so I
Mm.
just sort of want to say that it's no reason to stay if you're in pain. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
if something isn't serving you anymore. It's okay to
Hmm.
grow out of it.
What a perfect metaphor. That was, I mean, really, when you said it, it's
Amazing.
absolutely, yeah, it's absolutely perfect. And I love that you mentioned relationships beyond just a marriage or a partner, that you talk about friendships and with your family, because we stay and we continue to try to push that square peg in a round hole and to make it work. And so I love that you're talking about that, because my podcast is not just about, marital relationships, and it's about your relationships as a whole, and reclaiming your life and redefining love for yourself. So thank you for mentioning that. That's such a huge thing. So you also talked in your Instagram about the 5 truths about friendships. Speaking of friendships, great segue, Andrea. We talked about the 5 truths about friendships that you wish you knew in your 30s. So, can you share a few of those truths with us?
Yeah, you may have to remind me. Sorry, we do so many
Oh,
posts a week. Sorry.
oh wait, I did look at it. I was going to write them down for you, but I thought trust was one of them. That was a big one. Hold
Oh, it's
on.
okay. I can just talk to what
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know what I
Go for
meant.
it.
I know it
Okay.
might not be perfect. I know what I meant.
Yeah, you don't actually
Yeah.
need to be specific.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm actually going to, yeah. So there's 5 truths are helpful, but I want to just sort of talk to, I think if I was to boil it down to one thing now that I know, coming up for 44, having gone through what I went through, I was given a brilliant piece of advice from somebody when I first started the divorce process. And she said to me, people that you always thought were going to be there for you won't be, and you'll be devastated.
Yep.
And she was like, but don't lose faith, because there'll be people that you never thought would show up for you,
And they
and
do.
they're going to step in and be in their place. And I was a bit like, at some, I was like, all right. And I was thinking, oh, that's nice, but also it can't be possible. And she was absolutely right. And if she hadn't have told me that, I tell everyone this, it's going through a job change, a separation, a glow up, anything, whatever it might be, a change, a
Yeah.
transition, because it happens every time. And your whole world is like spun out when those people that you're like, but they're my people. Like we've been, I've done all that. We've
Yeah.
been connected. We do all this stuff together. Like I've known them for so long, whatever it might be. And why wouldn't they be there for me? And then you find out that they're not, and it's such a deep betrayal. And then the other, I think, most important thing I would want to share with people, just to save time, frankly, because again, when you're doing it yourself and you're trying to make things work, and you've been through the battering of like any kind of, just whether it's friendships, family, romantic relationship, whatever it might be, but when you've weathered that storm and you're just about getting back on your own 2 feet again, we haven't got the time to kind of keep going through crap like that from people that
Yeah.
don't mean well for us. If they are not around the table cheering for you, you steer clear from them. Like one of my posts is, you cheer for me or you steer clear from me. And I really mean that. And that's not in like an arrogant, oh, you must love me way. But if you look around your table with some news and there is someone that will not smile for you, if somebody is looking at all your Instagram stories, for example, but they'll never publicly like a post or support you, but they're supporting people in your space. Like you're a woman with your business. I've got a business. People that wouldn't cheer for my business but wanted to see what I was up to, and you're like, well, hang on a minute, like, and I can see you're active because you're actively supporting people in the space. They are not waiting for you to win, and that's a really sad piece of truth that I've had to learn the hard way. They're waiting to see some kind of slide or something like that, and it's difficult and it's hard. Doesn't mean you don't have to be friends with them. I've maybe sort of like regrouped people over time, like, okay, well, maybe I'll see you with a group of friends and we'll do this kind of activity instead of, I don't know, just 2 of us for dinner or something like that, but those are the things that I would say to my younger self in my 20s or to people in their 20s now.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great idea, because we really need to stop and look at our group as a whole and see who is there for you. And often remember, they always say people come in for a reason, a season, a lifetime. And that couldn't be more true. Friends that you think are going to be there for you till the end, and they're just not, for whatever reason. Sometimes it is jealousy, or they just have so much going on with their own lives. But it's okay to recognize that maybe that person just wasn't the person for the lifetime, but they were there for a particular reason, and to kind of dig deep and find that reason and move on from them, right? I think that's just super important. So accountability is a huge part of personal growth, but so many people, of course, struggle with accountability. So how do you help your clients stay accountable when they're feeling overwhelmed? Kinds of things do you offer?
I love that. Well, that's me right now. So
yes. What would you offer yourself?
I mean, I tell you what, I'll be really, really honest. I think this is I hope this is helpful for the audience.
Yes.
So right now, I've got this book coming out on the 13th of May, and I'm not an author. This is my first time. Yes, I've got a platform, but the algorithm's mad, as you probably know right now.
Yes.
So, it's a big ask, $20, $24 for a book. A lot of people don't have much money at the moment. It's difficult times, right? So, and I'm not, this is my first book, my first foray into what I'm doing, and it's unusual. I'm writing about a subject, unapologetic, that people, about shame. Most people haven't really gone into that yet, that sort of thing. Every day I am having a battle with myself to kind of keep going and stay in my lane. Like I look at, say, Mel Robbins, Let Them, and I'm like, well, you're never going to be able to do that. What's the point?
Yeah.
Like the imposter syndrome, like you're never going to get there. Look at how well she's doing. You might as well just give up. Like, what's the point? You're a minnow in the ocean. Just, there's look at what everyone else is doing. You're never going to get there. You must just get the blanket with the cat and go and lay on the sofa for 2 months and just eat chocolate. But that is
Yeah.
a real life example of me every single day having to like knock myself back into my lane and go,
Mm.
no, come on, we'll do it
Yeah.
again today.
Yeah.
And that's all. We'll do it
That's
again
it.
today. But
Yeah.
quite often, see, that was me. And so every day there's a lure of some kind of self-sabotage, like,
Yes.
oh, let's just stay in and not do it. It's not going to
Hmm.
work anyway. So you might as well not do that big trip because it's going to
Hmm.
cost you money. And what if it doesn't work out? Or, yeah, there's all these reasons that start coming up that almost offer the siren's call of self-sabotage, is what
Yeah.
I would say. So I
Yeah.
want to offer that out in answer to that question, like to your audience, because that's what happens. That's what
Mm.
comes up, and it's real. And especially when you're on the precipice of making a big change. So with regards to
Hmm.
accountability, I've just got to keep myself in check and go, listen, lady, you've gone
Mm.
all in on this. That's your
Hmm.
finish line. That's when you
Hmm.
can stop. That's
Yeah.
when you can just take stock, and whatever you've done to that point, that is, and if you've done it every day and you've shown up, then fine, we'll
Hmm.
take stock then, and whatever you get from there is fine. The other thing with accountability that's really important is it's really easy not to tell anyone, because then you can
Hmm.
also, because then again it's easy to like hide away. So I don't know, I'll give you like the New York Times bestseller. I even posted on, I've got it on my vision board, which is over there. I posted it on my Instagram for
Hmm.
everyone to see. I put it on my newsletter to say,
Hmm.
this is an audacious, massive dream. This is what I'm going after. I want to try and hit a New York Times bestseller list place. That's what
Yeah.
I want. That's what I'm going for. Now, I absolutely might not get that right, but I won't feel like a failure or like I didn't do it. And that's my accountability, is sharing it with my audience. So that's what
Yes.
I'm hoping for. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So if you've got
Yes.
a goal, something that's important to you, find an accountability partner.
Mm.
Brilliant. Put it
Hmm.
and make it real. So a good
Hmm.
coaching sort of check-in question is, let's just say you said to me, oh, I really want to travel more. I'm going to make sure I tick off 3 new countries this year. And I'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. So you're going to do that by December? Yeah. And I would say, how will I know?
Yeah.
And you could be like, oh, I'll let you know when I book it. And I'd be like, no, you got to travel by December. So come on, like, I need you to show me your plan for the year,
Hmm.
when you've got the time to go. Do that by the end of this week. Then next week you can do your budget or
Hmm.
book the tickets, and you can send me that, or here's my calendar. Send me an
Yeah.
invite
To
when I
make it
know that you've got
tangible.
your, it's
Hmm.
literally, it's got to be tangible. There's
Hmm.
got to be there's got to be receipts. We keep the receipts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a great thing to say, is how will I know? And
Yeah.
so that's like, I'll send you an email with the flight confirmation. I'll be like, great. No,
I
truly,
love
like, that's a
that.
really good. And how will I know? So for me, if you were holding me accountable, and I'd be like, oh, I'm just so tired, I just don't want to do it, and I'm just,
Yeah.
and I've got to, and you could be like, I know you've got to write 5 pitches to go out to the press in the UK by Wednesday. So how about you send them to me by Tuesday night? Like, that is
Yeah.
accountability. That keeps me
Accountability.
on track.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing, your story on feeling anxiety when you see other people's stuff, because of course we all go through this. We're in the same kind of line of work here. And I'll admit, when I was reaching out for the podcast, for the longest time, I'm reaching out just to the ones that felt comfortable, that were in the same space. They're not too big. They're not too far ahead of me. And it felt comfort. And then one day I just said, you know what? Why not go for the ones that are a little bit bigger or way bigger? Because that's my dream, is to get there anyway. And that's where I found you, which is amazing. And, thankfully I did reach out to you, and it was such a blessing, because you were like, oh my gosh, I would love to do your podcast. And I will say, I think I sent out 10 that day, and I got 7 yeses of, Andrea, I would be honored to be on your podcast. And it's that realization where I was like, oh my gosh, wow, and it was so fulfilling and felt so great, because I took that leap of faith, and thankfully it paid off. But it's just like you're saying, we have to stop worrying about going for the dream, like what that's going to feel like, the fear of the rejection, and just go for it and hold yourself
Totally.
accountable for it. Yeah.
Totally. I
I
love
love
that.
that.
I actually,
So
so I'm very happy to just say anything now. I
yeah,
am literally
you're
unapologetic. So
unapologetic,
I've,
right?
I am. I've got all the shame out my system.
Love it.
However, I had an email saved for like 6 weeks to Brene Brown, who
Yeah.
is to me the high priestess of shame. Like, she is
Mm.
my absolute idol, to send out the manuscript to her and just say, look,
Yes.
can you read it? and it's really hard to get her email, by the way. I'm not going to say how I did it, but like I
Yeah.
had to,
But you got it.
I did some sleuthing, right, to get an email for her.
Yes. Yes.
Fair enough, the lady wants to be left alone, like she's done her stuff, but I managed to find it and pulled a fake, blah, blah, blah. And I said in it, I was like, I've had this sat here for 6 weeks and I've been scared to send it to you,
Yeah.
and I just need to not be scared anymore. Like when I went through all the work with shame, when I got rid of all of my shame, one of the things I learned, and I love that you've highlighted this, is when to ask for help.
Yeah.
And so I said, I need your help. I really
Yes.
need some help. And like you asking me to come on your podcast, like kind of
Yes.
you asking me
Asking
for
for
help.
help.
And I felt honored to
Absolutely.
help you. But I
Oh,
think
thank
there's so
you.
many relationships and situations where we think we're doing the other person a favor by not asking. And actually, I loved being on here with you. As soon as this came through, I was like, I can't wait to do this one. This is going to be a
Oh,
really good conversation.
thank you so much. Yes, it made my day that you did. So thank you. And we followed through because I know we had to reschedule a few times. So that was amazing that you stuck to it with me. So let's talk about your book,
Sure, thank
Unapologetic.
you.
Okay, so you said, and I have this written down, your book is called Unapologetic. You said, when we realize we're not alone, shame loses its grip and we reclaim our power. This book is for any woman who has ever felt like they've lost their agency to shame or its master, the patriarchy. So tell us more about this book. What can the listeners expect from it? And of course, you said it's coming out May 13th, which is very soon.
It
Exciting.
is. Yeah,
Okay,
it
tell us
is.
all about it. Give us all the goods.
So it's part memoir, so it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
about my life. So you'll go through times where I now realize that I was taking on shame, like I say, the sort of violent childhood and places that I had personalized and taken on the shame for myself. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
also a lot of the work that I've done and the work I do with my clients to help people understand where maybe they've got shame themselves and giving it a
Mm-hmm.
voice. Shame is a felt sense. Shame is an I am. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to put shame into words, but you feel it immediately. So I use this example a lot, but my daughter's upstairs and I can be like, oh, Andrea, like I'm rushed in bedtime tonight. Don't feel great about it. Not doing the best mumming. That's
Right.
guilt.
That's
If
guilt.
I said the same situation to you and I said to you, I am a bad mother, I
Mm.
feel physically unwell saying that to you. I feel
It's
nauseous,
shameful.
and that's me making up an example. That is me being so ashamed. The
Mm.
things that I hear in my office, I am disgusting, I am unworthy, I'm unlovable, I'm broken, I'm a reject, I am weak, I am helpless, I am not enough, I'm out of control, I'm unsafe. I mean, I hear this all the
Yeah.
time. And so I really wanted to create, and I have in this book, from stories, like I say, my stories, my clients' stories, and then interviews with experts in areas where we carry deep shame. So
Mm.
the female sexual pleasure course is a holistic sex coach in there who sees women all the time about, reclaiming their agency or wondering if there's more or how to ask for their needs to be met and what's available. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got this fertility expert in there where anyone that's been going with infertility, that's a very patriarchal structure where women carry, generally speaking, kind of the burden of all of it. And she has to advocate for, women of color or women in bigger bodies who are not given, especially in the UK, the kind of
Mm-hmm.
consultational support they should have. I've got a bariatric surgeon from Oregon who talks about the origin stories of shame in
Wow.
bodies. It's fascinating. And which demographic have the most anxiety. So I've got my divorce lawyer in there. We go into
I
great detail
love
about
that.
divorce and breakups. I've got a journalist in there whose husband was cheating on her all throughout their wedding, and when she realized. I've got so many stories of
Wow.
betrayal, frenemies,
Yeah.
stories about how people were treated very cruelly, like the Mean Girls gang, and how that
Mm-hmm.
then embodied into workaholism to try and be cool enough and have the things, even as a grown up, you think might make you accepted. And I've got really beautiful stories from spiritual leaders, from people that found their purpose, even though it felt like everything had fallen away from them. And I
Mm.
also have in there my own therapist. I've waived my own anonymity, and my own therapist has put her files in there about her kind of first impressions,
Oh my
because I'm so
gosh.
determined that people aren't afraid. I'm so shame free. This is what you can have from my book. If there's any part of you
Yes.
that feels ashamed, you're scared, you're ashamed of your shame, you think, how could I possibly tell someone that? Who might choose me again? People will reject me. I can't possibly show up like that. I can't live to my potential. And it's shame that's holding you back. I have poured it all over these
Mm.
pages in my story and other people's, because I want people to see that they're not alone. And the second, we are every story in this book. Every
Mm.
person that reads this book, you are in every single story. And when you see it, shame has no hold over you, because you realize it's not just you. And the second you know that, you're like, oh, hope walks in the
Yeah.
door. There's
Yeah.
grief. It
Oh,
covers everything. It covers every area that we're told to be pretty and perfect and say sorry for being ourselves. And the final page is a manifesto. And I
oh,
won't tell you all of it, but it's a big
no.
poem. And it's
Yes.
really beautiful. The book's really beautiful. And at the very end, you actually sign away. Sorry, not sorry. I offer here my last apology to
Oh,
myself. And you sign it. Yeah, it's the last time you ever say sorry.
wow.
Oh, and also you can kind of say a sorry to a version of you when you maybe did apologize in a
Yes.
situation that you shouldn't have done. So yeah, it's a way of you. It's literally called Unshackle Your Shame, Unapologetic,
Ah,
Unshackle Your Shame, Reclaim Your Power.
I have chills at that last part, Annalie. I mean, that just sounds so amazing. I'm so glad I asked for you to promote the book instead of me trying to say it, because that was so good. I mean, it just sounds phenomenal. I mean, this
Oh,
is it's
thank
going to be
you.
huge. And I haven't really spoken to anyone that I've heard that has anything like it. So I really hope this does amazing. And I
Thank you.
would not be
My
surprised if it's a bestseller. It sounds
Oh, well,
amazing.
manifest,
Yeah,
manifest. But yeah,
put it
my
out there.
my editors did say, they were like, "You've created a new genre," because nobody. Basically, I've given shame a voice. Like I say, shame is
Yes.
felt, and no one's ever given it a voice. And the
Yeah.
brave, brave people that are in that book with their stories, like unfiltered. It's honestly, I mean,
Mm,
I can say this because I read it on Thursday. I did the audiobook on Thursday
me
last
too.
week,
Yeah.
so I've read it loads of times and done editing, but I haven't read
Yeah.
it out loud. And I read it out loud on Thursday, and it's so emotional. It's so,
Wow,
and the
that must
more
have
and
been
more,
a
yeah, and
different feel doing it yourself and actually being in the moment and saying it as you would with your inflection and everything. Amazing. Sorry, I
yeah.
interrupted you there.
No, no, no. I'm just saying it was just that
Yeah.
I'm sort of still kind of, I guess, in the after effects
Uh,
of that, like the ripple effect. I'm still sort of like coming back down to earth from that, because it was a real, yeah, I really have gone there, is what I was
yeah.
going to say. I'm reading it out loud, and I remember at one point I was like, woof, like I've really gone there.
Yes. Wow. Love it. I love it. So, okay, let's just kind of tie this all up for someone that is feeling stuck, whether it's in their career, their relationship, their personal growth. What would be one powerful mindset shift that you could give them today, the listeners today, just to start moving forward? One little baby step. What would you
So one of the
suggest?
questions I always ask a client is, where are you standing in your own way?
Mm,
And just to
great question.
understand, yeah, because a lot of the time it is factors happening to us,
Hmm.
but sometimes we are either, and that could be, I'm saying yes too much, I'm not honoring my
Hmm.
self-care, I'm not putting a boundary in, or maybe I'm engaging in a habit or behavior that is actually sabotaging myself.
Mm, yeah, self sabotage is huge. We do it all the time. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find all of your good stuff you have.
Thank you so much. So the best place to find
Hmm.
me is on Instagram, which is where we connected, which is at Annalie
Yes.
Howling. Come and join 300,000 other cool people. And the community's great. Comments are really good there. It's a nice place. Come and
Yes.
hang.
Beautiful.
And then obviously the book, which is Unapologetic, which is Amazon, Barnes and
Mhm.
Noble, Target, local bookstores. It's everywhere. Come and see me if you're in New
Perfect.
York on the 13th. Come and
Oh,
sign. Come and have a signed book.
I am
Um,
so excited for you. I can't wait to hear how
thank
this goes.
you.
It's going to be such a
Thank you.
journey. And what an icing on the cake to your journey. Really,
Thank you, Dan. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
to
that.
tie it all up. So I'll have all of this information in the show notes for everybody at the end. Okay, I love to play a little game from Mrs. to
Yes.
Ms. Would you rather? We're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so these are 10 questions, some of them based on your area of expertise, some are just for fun. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay, number one. Would you rather have the ability to instantly erase self doubt from your clients' minds or give them unlimited resilience to overcome any setback? So they could take it away or move forward with
Self-doubt.
everything. Self
Get rid of the
doubt,
self-doubt.
get rid of it.
Yeah.
We have so much self doubt. It's really hard. Number two, would you rather coach a high powered CEO navigating burnout or a special forces veteran adjusting to civilian life? So, which
The,
one's easier to do, I guess?
oh, the harder one is probably the veteran, but I find a much deeper emotional connection with the veteran. So I
Mm,
would always do the veteran.
yeah.
To me, it's so humbling. That is the most
Yes.
humble work I do. I'm just always in awe of them. And yeah, all of our armed forces personnel need all the help you can give them.
Oh,
So I would always do
absolutely.
that.
Love that answer. Number three, would you rather date someone who communicates solely through emojis or someone who texts back one word at a time like they're writing an epic saga? I hate that. Boom, boom, boom,
Oh
boom.
my God, I think I might have to go emojis. I think I'm too frenetic. I think
So we
I'm
know
too
it's
frenetic.
bad when we're going to pick to communicate only in emojis.
Yeah.
The
I
other
think
choice is pretty bad.
that'd be hard for me. Yeah.
That's funny. Number 4, would you rather fall for someone who makes you laugh uncontrollably or someone who gives you butterflies every time they walk in the room?
Well, I'm very lucky my man does both, but I'm gonna go with
Ooh.
laughing. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. Great answer. All right, we're going to keep on the track of the man. Number 5, blindfolded surprises or playful role play?
Oof, I want both. Blindfolded surprises.
Blindfolded surprises. Interesting. I love hearing the answers to that one. Number 6, here's another one for him. Would you rather have the ability to read your partner's mind during sex or be able to control their sensations with just a touch?
I definitely got the last one, so they know I've got the last one. So
She's like, I know it.
I also think, like, bless him. I think his mind. He's got no filter now. I think I always know what's on his mind. So
so you're kind of getting the best of both worlds in that one. All right. Number 7, trying new positions or mastering the classics.
I'm going to go mastering the classics. I think we rush too much sometimes. I think to
Oh,
really, I think sometimes we have this like, and it's all in the book again as well from the sex pleasure courses. I think there's something to be said for really going into your sensuality, which is very
yes.
slow, very very vulnerable, rather than sort of like, I don't know, like wham bam, like let's do all the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
But
love that
time and a
answer.
place for everything. But I'm today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go for mastering the
And I think
classics.
that's right. If we really related it to appreciating what we have and what we can work on right now and really making that better instead of always looking for,
It's
you know,
very
the next
easy
best
to
thing.
have sex without intimacy. It's
Mm-hmm.
very easy to go through all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and you don't have to be intimate, which means you don't have to be vulnerable, which means you get nowhere near sensuality, which means often we may not connect into pleasure. So it's actually a really vulnerable place quite often to go, oh, I'll master the classics, because we know it means that really deep, really
Yeah.
intimate connection. So
But that's
yeah.
amazing sometimes too. Yeah. All right. Number 8. Would you rather give a TED talk to thousands of people or have a one on one coaching session that completely changes one person's life?
Mm, it's a tricky one because I'd like to think I would. I'm going to go one on one. Because I
Yeah.
see it when I do it, when I get to do it, when I get to see the trauma leave someone's face and eyes and shoulders, and they walk out
Oh,
the room and they go, there was nothing else I could have done, or it really wasn't my fault, or I was only a child. Like when I see that, like,
so
I would
rewarding.
hope a TED talk would help people, but I know I physically see how much that changes people's lives. So I'm going to go one to one.
Beautiful. Number 9, would you rather date someone who loves texting but hates phone calls or someone who insists on long phone conversations but never replies by text? You
He's,
text.
I'm going to have to say phone calls because he loves to chat. So.
He does. I find that so funny. I have a friend who's just the same thing, just chat, 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 chat. And then a text, there's like nothing there. Sometimes I'm like, okay, enough, enough,
Well, I
enough,
mean,
right?
bless him. Are you ready for full like adoring love? So he's
Yes.
quite dyslexic, so he's very self-conscious about texting. Bless him. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
so
like
cute. So
it's
you
really cute.
appreciate
So
it.
I'm always happy to take the call because I know that also
Helps
it's
him.
yes.
I love that. All right, last question. Slow dancing in the living room or spontaneous dance moves in the kitchen?
In the kitchen
In the
disco.
kitchen. Are you a chef? Are you a cook in the kitchen? No,
No, I'm
no.
a
Is
very,
he?
very good little co-pilot and sit with a glass of wine and do the tunes. That'd be me. See, that's why we in the kitchen disco. I'll do the music
Yes. You
and
can
yeah.
dance in the corner and let him make everything. That's so
Yeah,
fun.
it's
So
not my
fun.
passion, but the
Oh,
vibe. I'll be chief vibes officer. I'll do that instead.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you for doing that with me. That was so fun. I always love getting a little bit of insight into someone. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that. So I just want to reiterate once again how wonderful you are and the stuff that you do. I have so few people that I've ever spoken to, if not any, on shame. And so this is such a cool niche. And I was very excited to talk more about it. So we're looking forward to your book coming out.
Thank you.
I'll let everybody know exactly where they can find you and they can find your book and everything. Do you have any last few pieces of words for the listeners?
I think just lean into the idea of the snake wherever you are in your journey, and just
Love that
know
one.
that if you are feeling suffocated, there's nothing that you did wrong. Like, don't take on any shame if you're feeling that you're in that place right now.
Yeah.
Because
Shed your
and
skin. Yeah.
absolutely let it
Yeah.
go.
Perfect. And to you listeners out there, thank you for joining me so much this week. It's been wonderful having you. You can find me on any major streaming platform at from.mrs.to.ms. You guys have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.